So I don't know if these guys meant to shoot in our direction. All right, here we go. Uh-oh. And I screen record everything that I was doing so you guys can see I'm not doing anything funky here. Guys, I've been dying to see the difference between Kodak Portra 400 and Kodak Gold 200. There are several other videos here on YouTube of it, but it's usually with medium format cameras, or if they're doing 35mm comparisons, they're using two different types of lenses, two different types of cameras. I have a fix for that because I mainly only shoot 35mm. And so now I'll finally be able to really see if my love for Kodak Gold actually makes sense or not. But first, let me show you the camera that I will be using to conduct this test. This is the Rolleiflex 3003. I actually met a sales rep at the Leica store the other day who used to work for Rolleiflex, and he gave me some good information on this. Basically, this was over-engineered and it did not do that well because it was fully electronic. The reason I'll be using this is we have interchangeable backs, and I have a second matching back for this. So one back I'll be able to put Kodak Portra 400, and the other back we will put Kodak Gold. So guys, I will say loading this camera has some quirks. So you can see this is one of the backs right here. This just comes right out, and look how freaking weird this thing is. The film just drops into there. This just wraps to the back, goes underneath that little metal holder piece, and then this goes underneath one of these white tabs here, and then you just spin this and hopefully it catches. There we go. It just loads right back into there. We're just gonna shoot everything at box speed, and we will do exposure tests as well. I'm pretty sure I didn't catch that. I was loading that roll of film up and a Jeep pulls up. So I don't know if these guys meant to shoot in our direction, but I heard that shit whiz right over us. I looked over there and I was like, what the fuck? And they got in their Jeep and they took off. I don't know what the fuck that was about. I never had that happen before. I do have a dedicated video that I am going to make for this camera, but you can see we do have a top-down viewfinder. It's so cool being able to shoot 35mm as if it was medium format. Got to make sure our dark slide is out, and then we engage this. I'm going to take one safety shot just in case there's any light leaks. You can see it auto advances as well, really sick. All right. Now I'm going to swap the backs out. The shots are safe. And here goes our next back. Let's do our safety shot just in case there's any light rolls. All right, here we go. Uh-oh. Why did it just die? Is it because of that? Uh-oh. This video might have just gotten wrecked. It's like the mirror's getting stuck. I don't have much faith in this. I don't know what's going on. I think maybe the mirror's getting stuck. All right, so a little bit of a mishap. That whole roll of Portra 400 totally messed up. I don't even recall when I bought that roll, and it was sitting in my bag, so it could have just been an old roll that wasn't, you know, temperature controlled, or it could have been that camera. So instead, I'm on the way to Vegas right now, but I brought my Leica M7 and I brought my Leica MP. I'm gonna be using the same lens back to back. So Portra 400 will be going into the MP here. Okay, that's loaded up. And then Kodak Gold will be going into the Leica M7. All right, this will be the last that you see me out here because I need to knock all these out, and then we'll go home and we'll go over the results together. I'm gonna do a full video on this. I wanna make it so freaking cinematic too, just you guys wait. This thing's really cool though. Once it's done auto heating the chemicals, it will just start processing my film for me. It's pretty magical. All right, guys, so I scanned these two rolls back to back, and personally, I'm shocked at how different the colors look, because all the videos that I've seen comparing them, people are usually using labs, and so, you know, they're not seeing what the scan tech is doing to adjust the shots, or they're camera scanning and then, you know, converting in negative lab pro and yada, yada, yada. The way I did it, I'm using a Fuji Frontier SP500. So this is a scanner that a lot of film labs even use. And I screen record everything that I was doing so you guys can see I'm not doing anything funky here. I wasn't doing any color shifts or anything like that. So these are the base corrections that the Frontier did on their own. All I really did was kind of mess with the exposures, but that's it pretty much, which won't shift your colors that much. It might affect the saturation a little bit, but anyways, so these are our first two comparison shots. I'm assuming a lot of you guys can probably guess which is which. On the left, we have Kodak Gold. On the right, we have Kodak Portra. Off the bat, Gold has a look that I like. Has that really saturated, warm type look, where Portra is very neutral. But the big difference is Portra has a lot more latitude. The Portra is kind of what I'm used to seeing what people would usually do with their shots. Maybe they would saturate it, recover some of the sky, and you know, that's the look of Portra. Where the Kodak Gold on the left, this is the look that I like. I kind of wish Gold had the latitude that Portra did, but with all the warmth. Just to kind of jump to the chase, I'm hoping that Kodak releases some new emulsions this year that have a little bit more fun colors, more saturation, a tiny bit more color shifts, just some more of a nostalgic look, but with all the dynamic range and the latitude that Portra has. So these two shots here, these are the ones that I underexposed by a stop. So you can see Kodak Gold quickly starts falling apart, where the Portra still looks usable. So, you know, you're going to get a little bit more latitude on the top and the bottom, mainly on the top because it's film. Again, I'm not doing any color changes while I was scanning. This is just the Frontier doing its auto corrections and then me doing exposure adjustments. You can see how freaking beautiful Kodak Gold is. Now, when we punch in, we start seeing the bigger differences here. So even though the Kodak Portra is a 400 grain ISO and the Kodak Gold is 200, the Portra 400 has more refined and fined grain structure than what the Kodak Gold is. So, you know, when you start manipulating your film and you start trying to recover it and you're cropping and you're doing this and that and trying to make selections and blah, 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 masking, Portra 400 is going to be a cleaner base to start off with, which is going to make it easier to edit. That's the whole point of Portra. Not only that though, we can even start looking at the colors. You can see the wood pallets here on top of the roof. We're seeing bits of yellow. We're seeing like some burnt looking parts and then some, looks like some old blue paint, or maybe that's blue sky reflecting and bouncing off of here. But then when we go to the Kodak Gold, all of that's kind of being lost. You know, it's kind of a give and take. This is what I'm saying. I kind of wish I had the colors and the saturation of Gold, but with the fidelity of Portra. I think that would be an amazing film stock. Now down in this section, once again, you can see Portra just has way better color separation, though it's a lot more neutral and a lot more cooler. So in these rocks over here, you can see there's all sorts of colors in these rocks. So you can see all the differences there. Where on the Gold, all those colors are kind of being grouped together a little bit more, which personally I really like on film. You know, with digital sensors, our digital sensors are capturing billions of different colors and it's combining all of those, where, you know, film is more limited, but I think that's kind of beautiful. It's the same thing with black and white photography, where you're forced to look at the whole frame because there's no distracting colors. So, you know, a lot of people that got into photography in the digital era, they think that they need to get accurate colors and true to life colors, and that's what makes a good photograph. When you're more of a painterly photographer in terms of, you know, you like the more artistic side of photography, which is what photography still is supposed to be about, then obviously, I guess we'll call this creative fidelity, creating your own world and not capturing the world true to life, but, you know, capturing life according to how you view it and your perception on it. Once again, it's going to be the same thing with all these shots here. Again, a lot of the tests that I've seen, the Gold ends up looking very similar to the Portra, but just, you know, with some more yellows into it. So this is the big difference on when I'm able to scan it myself. You know, a traditional scan tech inside the lab, they might correct the Gold to look a little bit more neutral, or they might have their machines tuned to where it just kind of neutralizes everything because, you know, they have hundreds of negatives that they're scanning per day. So they just want to give you a clean base. But when we start punching in, you can see, again, Portra It's holding on to better sharpness, overall better fidelity. You can see the office sign over here is a lot sharper on the Portra 400, where on the Kodak Gold, it's a little bit softer. So all these little details, this is why, you know, Kodak Portra is a pro film stock and Kodak Gold is considered a consumer film stock. So it's kind of up to you on what your professional needs may be. So again, it's the same story over and over. For a second there, I thought maybe this was the same shot and that I messed this whole video up. But if we look at this flag over here, it's in the wind, and then right here, there's no wind on it. So these are different shots. You know, Kodak Portra is rendering a lot more cooler, where the Gold is a lot more warmer. This next shot, I just underexposed it by a stop. And once again, you can see on the Kodak Gold, there's not much recoverable over there. It's just becoming muddy. Where on the Portra, again, there's still a lot more details in the shadows over here. We can even punch in. On the Gold, it's a lot more muddy, where on the Portra, you can still see this is a green cactus over here. We still have some bluish reflections in the windows, even up here in the asphalt and everything. And on the Gold, everything's just kind of getting neutralized. Now, this is where Portra really starts to shine even more, because this was a really contrasty scene. The Gold almost looks like it's underexposed, even though we're still losing details in the sky over here, where the Portra just looks great. You know, this is a great base. If I did want to warm it up or start editing it or anything like that, I'm having a lot more latitude in the Portra. So as I'm doing this video, I'm starting to see that maybe I do want to start shooting more with Portra, not as much with Gold as I've always have been. And that's maybe because, you know, we do have better image quality to be recovered. So, you know, with film, when you mess it up, once you mess it up, it's just messed up. But with the Portra, since we still have so much latitude here, it's giving me a little bit more confidence. So if I'm going to be shooting a lot more film, and it might be better if I just stick with Portra. But again, I'm just loving the look of Gold. Now, I do have a couple more videos in the works where I'll be able to get Portra to look more like Gold, but with the Portra latitude. So subscribe so you guys can see that. Really excited. This is what I love about shooting more film, is I get to experiment more. So you can see right here too, I just boosted the exposure up right there. The Kodak Gold's doing pretty damn good here, in my opinion. But again, there's no true to life colors, which personally I do not care. I like the warmth of Gold, but I do wish I had a little bit more of the latitude in Portra. So, you know, we're witnessing the same things over and over and over here. Once again, absolutely loving the way the Kodak Gold is looking, but we can see our sky details. Everything's getting kind of squished together, which I like for the most part. But we can see, say if there's important details in the back of this building here, I wouldn't be able to recover as much as I would with the Portra 400, as you guys are seeing over here. I feel like the Portra overall is just capturing more details, and it's keeping the color separation to where sometimes, again, that's important. Other times, I just love the way the Gold is kind of meshing, you know, the purple and the asphalt over here from, you know, the ambient blue sky hitting it, and it's creating it purple. And then the yellow weeds being pushed more orangey. And then we go back over the Portra, all those colors are being separated. It's a little bit more desaturated, which again, you could boost it and post. Same story over and over and over. You know, I really prefer the colors of Gold, but I'm loving the latitude and quality of Portra. Once again, I'm really loving the overall color on the Kodak Gold, but I'm loving the color separation over on the Portra shot over here. So there's not gonna be any definitive answer here. The Gold just looks amazing. Portra, though, obviously has the image quality going for it. Same thing. It looks like I corrected the exposure on the Gold, but on the Portra. But regardless, we are still seeing all the color separation happening here. On this one, it looks like I lowered the Portra's exposure a stop extra than I did on the Kodak Gold while scanning. You know, I am pretty confident that, you know, when I was scanning the Portra, I could have easily added some yellow and some magenta while I was scanning it, and it would have got it closer to that Kodak Gold look, but with extra image quality out of it. Now, this shot was the biggest eye opener here, because when I originally scanned the Kodak Gold first, I was like, ooh, I'm pretty sure I nailed that exposure, but the Kodak Gold is having an issue holding the shadows on this building side and also the highlights on the building side. So I thought maybe I accidentally underexposed it and that the Portra shot was also going to be underexposed. But obviously when we look at the Portra, and again, I shot these side by side, I was matching all the settings accounting for the different exposures because I just shot them at box speed. We could see the Kodak Portra is just holding on to that dynamic range way better. Like it's holding all the details perfectly. So this was the shot where I was like, I still really I prefer the look of Kodak Gold still in terms of the color. I just like the way it's manipulating the colors and it's kind of baking in a look on its own. And that look I naturally gravitate towards. But the way the Kodak Portra is separating the asphalt from all the colors on the parking spot here, the way it's still, you know, holding on to some of the highlight retention on this wall and not crushing the shadows over here. Our skies look really consistent. All the plants, you can see we have greens, yellows, the orange stripes over here. We're on the gold. All those colors are being kind of pushed together, which again, I like. But for this shot specifically, I like the portrait quality more. And I would just warm this up in post if I needed to. Or I would do some other tricks that, again, I'm working on some videos for. Now, this is our first dynamic range test. So this is at just box speed, metered at 0. I'm gonna keep saying it. Love the way that Kodak Gold rendered, but obviously we can see the Portra, even though it is a cooler color balance, it is holding on to better color separation. These shots I underexposed by 1-stop, and you can see the Kodak Gold immediately is falling apart. It's grainy. I kind of like the look though. Now these shots are pushed 1-stop, and you can see on the Kodak Gold, we're getting all of that brown tonality in the shadows. And this is the reason I love Kodak Gold, because it has this like matte warmth to it. I love it so much that I'm working with Moment on a filter to recreate this look. It's becoming a pretty technical filter. It's requiring a lot of prototypes, and it's been a lot of fun working on it. And hopefully we get as close as possible to recreating that look. No one else has been able to do it. I tried working with a couple other companies and they just weren't really understanding what I was trying to do. Moment though has Japan engineers and everything, but I'll say that for another time. Now these shots are pushed 2 stops now. Portra's colors haven't shifted that much, but they are beginning to shift. It presented some warmth into the highlights, and it's shifting the shadows into green a tiny bit, like a little bit more cooler tone. So I've been shooting at box speed a lot this year. I think I might have to go back to overexposing by a stop on all my film stocks. So crazy high dynamic range scene right here. The Fuji Frontier really scanned the Portra cooler on this shot, and the Kodak Gold, you know, it's earning its name gold. It just looks absolutely beautiful. If I was to go to edit these though, the gold, I probably wouldn't be able to recover the highlights where on Portra. I'm assuming there's probably some latitude still in there. Another high dynamic range shot. Again, you can see the gold is just creating its own natural look. I think if you're somebody who wants that nostalgic look, I would say just stick to gold. But if you're somebody that's shooting more professional and you are planning on doing heavy edits to your film, obviously Portra is going to be your best bet here. Personally, if I'm going to warm up an image like this, I'd rather do it while scanning. So if you're sending your film to a film lab, you need to tell them, and you need to kind of drill in the point, because obviously they have a lot of clients. So you have to tell them, hey, I really want warmer scans. Can you warm up my scans when you're doing them? Once again, you know, I probably could have corrected the Portra over here to have more of that magenta warmth, but this is the way that Frontier is rendering it. And, yeah, again, I just love the way that the Kodak Gold is looking. You guys, I swear to God, it is impossible for me to film a video without somebody mowing the lawn. Yeah, we can see though on this Portra 400 shot, we're getting that classic, iconic wedding photographer look. So back in the day when I was shooting more film, I kind of stopped shooting it because of this, because all the film labs here in Southern California, there weren't that many hip labs around at the time. And most of the film labs were in the OC, and majority of their clients were just wedding photographers. And everybody liked this pastel look. And I absolutely am disgusted by this look. I'm not shitting on the wedding photographers. You know, it looks great, but I'm saying for my own work, I despise this look. Bright, airy pastel look does not represent the way I see the world and my type of art that I gravitate towards. I do not like it at all. And then we can see on the Kodak Gold over here, this is naturally more my speed here. Again, in the Portra, when I'm scanning it, I can give it that more crunchy, warm look while I'm scanning that negative. So now that I have my own setup, this is the whole reason of me investing so much money into my setup here at home, is because if I can't get the look that I want, that I know is possible, you know, if I can do that, then it's just going to encourage me to shoot more film. So that's why, you know, I put so much money into my setup here at home. All right, so last few shots here. Again, it's going to be the same story. You know, the Gold's going to have its own look. It's going to be a little more crunchy, where the Portra is just going to have a little bit more everything. Just better color separation. But all right, that's the last of it. So that's the comparison on the second batch of rolls there. I don't know why even my simple videos are still just so much. Anyways, from my understanding and everything that I've read and heard, Kodak Portra was made for a modern era, an era where we are digitally scanning all of our film and digitally manipulating that film. So I believe Kodak set out to, you know, make kind of a neutral, flat, format. So basically when we digitally scan it, we're able to digitally alter it as much as we want. So that's amazing if you're trying to get the most out of your film and say if you have professional deliverables and yada, yada, yada. But oftentimes, Portra feels too freaking clean, in my opinion. Now, all of this just to say, I really freaking hope we get some more new film stocks coming out from Kodak. I would love something that has boosted saturation, more vivid tonalities, and to have a little bit more fun with color shifts. You know, let the highlights go a little bit more pink. Let the shadows go a little bit more green. You know, have the film be a little bit more unpredictable, but with the quality of the Portra. Basically, I would love if Kodak gave us a professional film stock, but that was a little bit more fun. So yeah, moving forward, when I want a heavier grain look and I want more of that nostalgic look and I just want it to be warm off the bat, Kodak Gold all day. But I think moving forward, I am going to start embracing Portra more. That's mainly because I am, starting to nail down my film workflow. I'm starting to get my film processing, auto processor figured out a lot more. And I'm starting to get the routine down. And then my whole scanning setup, my Fuji Frontier, I'm starting to get that really dialed in as well. So I feel more comfortable embracing Portra, mainly just for consistency. And I guess that's the whole point behind a professional, Kodak professional film stock, is the fact that, you're buying into that consistency and that predictability. And as I start shooting more film, I really want to experiment and keep having fun with it. So it won't be only Portra for me, but for the times where I'm like, hey, I might get some cool prints. I might get something that I actually really want to pay attention and care about. I'm going to just stick to Portra or Ektacolor or Pro, whatever the hell they're calling it now. And then Kodak Gold will be my fun film stock, essentially. So yeah, I hope you guys got something out of this. I would love to hear from you guys in the comments what you would embrace. And seriously, thank you for watching this and joining me on this film adventure of hyper fixation, obsession, focus.